A great way to play with WordPress for your coursework and for building WordPress sites is to install a server on your local computer and use it directly. In a previous video, I introduced several free options that make it easy to install WordPress locally. In this video, you'll use the free program called MAMP to install a local server on your computer and create a local environment for website development. Then, you'll learn how to install WordPress manually. Because everyone's computer is different, setting up a server on yours may require a slightly different setup. If you have any issues with MAMP working on your computer, you can also use Desktop Server, Instant WP, or even your free SiteGround hosting account to install WordPress manually as well. By going through the manual install process, you'll learn about how WordPress works between its file structure and connection to a database, which is an invaluable skill for a WordPress expert. Let's get started. Start by opening up your browser and navigating to mamp.info. The installation and setup process might be slightly different depending on whether you're on a Windows computer or a Mac, and you'll have to choose the right file to download. The first thing I'll do is just make sure that Windows is the box that's checked down here, and then I'm going to download the correct version. It usually will detect the type of operating system that you're on, and when you hit the download button, it'll open a dialog box and you can click Save File. It's going to take a few minutes here, and I'll pause the video while that downloads. Now that it's downloaded, you can just double-click the EXE button, or whatever the file was that it downloaded, and click Run in Windows. It wants my permission to start an installing package, and I'll just keep clicking Next. I don't want MAMP Pro because we don't really need it for our purposes. Accept the license agreement. You do want to install it right directly onto your C drive. And I'm going to install it anyway because I already did have a MAMP folder installed previously. Sure, you can create a desktop icon and click Install. I'll pause the video while this happens, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, now that it's finished installing, I can click the Finish button. And now all that's left is to go and open MAMP. It either put an icon on your desktop, or you can use the Start window. And MAMP is opening up, as you can see. And it's trying to start the Apache server and the MySQL server in the background. And when those two green lights light up, I'll know that it's activated, and I'll go look at the preferences. Start page URL is /MAMP, that's fine, and let's look at what we have for the web server. htdocs. I'm going to put the WordPress files into this folder, C:\mamp htdocs, so that I can access it as the web server, and then I'll set up the database and install WordPress. So let's get started first by going to get rid of this settings preferences screen, and I'll click Open Start Page. Now if I can click Open Start Page and I have an address here that's localhost /MAMP, I know that I am installed and MAMP is running in the background. Now I've got a server set up on my local computer, and I can install WordPress along with the database and get it going. So I'll navigate to wordpress.org, and up at the top right I'll click the download button, and that'll take me to this download page. The latest version at this point is WordPress 4.5, newly released yesterday. And I'll click Save File, and those are all the WordPress core files. So now I'll open up Windows Explorer, and I'll move these files around to where I want them. First, let's go to the Downloads page here, my Downloads folder, I mean. And then I'm going to just navigate on my computer to my website company folder and my WordPress folder. Then I'll make a new folder for WordPress 4.5. Usually use a dash instead of a dot or just WordPress 4.5. Here it is. Now, if I right click in Windows and click Extract All, I can unzip the zip file. Pause the video while that happens. There we go. Now I've got a folder that contains another folder called WordPress, and inside that folder are the WordPress core files. There's always going to be 3 folders: WP Admin, WP Content, and WP Includes, along with a whole bunch of PHP files that are part of the WordPress core files. Now, what I'm going to do is go to that MAMP folder under Windows C:, and MAMP, and here are all the folders and files that make that MAMP server environment. And I know that htdocs is where we keep documents, and I actually have some from a previous MAMP installation, some WordPress installation folders that I have here from different versions of WordPress I've been able to run locally. But I'll create a new one, and as you can see, I'll usually call these local 1, local 2. I'm actually going to call this WP Dev Course 1. Oops. WP Dev Course 1. And inside that folder, I want to put all the WordPress core files and folders. And I want to keep my WordPress 4.5 files intact inside my WordPress folder here. So as I drag them across on my Windows machine, I'm going to hold Control and copy these over to the htdocs folder inside WP Dev Course 1. And I'll pause the video while that copies. If I go to this localhost, not /MAMP, but /WP Dev Course 1, there's going to be an error. We haven't connected the WordPress installation with its configuration file to the database yet. Now it sees that WordPress is there and it wants to begin the installation. And if I start, they need some information from the database. So I'm going to need these, and they're going to try to create the WP config file. Now, you can use this, but let's do this completely manually using a text editor so that you guys know how to set up WordPress manually and how the files actually work together and communicate to the database. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to this screen and leave it there for now. And let's go ahead and open our files up again. Now the file I'm looking for is called wp-config-sample, and it's a PHP file, so I know it's .php. And I'd like to open that up in my text editor. Hopefully you got set up with a code editor like Notepad++ or Atom, and if I just right click on it in Windows, I can open it with the file I want. So do that. Open wp-config-sample, and we're actually going to save it as wp-config.php. That's the file that WordPress is configured to use for its configuration information. It's where we put the credentials for the database, among other security issues. So I've got this open in Atom, and I'm going to click File, Save As. And I do want to save it in the exact same place, but I'm just going to take away the -sample, and I do want to call it .php. Make sure I have the right extension on there. So here we go. I've got wp-config.php, and up here it shows me where it's located, so I know I'm working with the right one. There it is. So as we go down here, we have a place we can enter the database name, the database username, the password, and then the database host, which in a lot of cases, even on a live server, is called localhost. So now I need to set up the database within MAMP so that I can put the credentials here and let WordPress connect to the database. If I navigate to MAMP, let's see, I'll close the settings panel and then I can click Open Start Page. And again, that'll open my browser. And it should open the start page in another tab. There it goes. I can verify that here up here, localhost/MAMP. Great, now that I'm at the MAMP start page, down here under MySQL, MySQL, I have a little button called PHP My Admin. If I click that button, it'll open up an administrative panel for the database. You can see that there's some other database segments in there from my other installations. But what you need to do from this page that first opens up, the server colon localhost, you click New at the top here, and it says that it's loading. What that's doing is creating a new database, and I need to name it. I'm going to name it the same thing as my WordPress installation folder, and click Create. Gives you a success message. Database WP Dev Course 1 has been created. And if I click on it, you can see that there's no tables found in the database. WordPress will populate the database with the appropriate tables for running the WordPress website. So now that we have the database created, MAMP uses a standard set of credentials. And that's what we'll set up inside Atom, the text editor. So I'm going to edit wp-config.php, the database name that I just created. And the username and password, you'd never want to use this in a live site because it's not secure. But for ease of using off the internet and setting up sites locally, the default is to set the username as the word root and the password as the word root. There is one more configuration you might check, and that's the database host. Just go back to PHP My Admin and look at your empty database and look that it says localhost right up here under server. Mine is localhost :3306, and so I'm going to use that credential for the database host. And I'll hit Control S and save, or you can use File Save. Now, these credentials are also visible back in the MAMP start page under MySQL. The host is there, and the port is what you have to put :3306, and then user and password are both root. Now I should be able to go back to my browser, navigate to localhost/WP Dev Course 1. That's giving me the installation screen. So I'll hit continue, and it's connected to the database. I could just make a title for the site, choose my username, make sure I remember this password. I just hit Control-C for copy. Put an email address in, and click Install WordPress. I am going to open up Notepad. Just make sure that while I have that password on my clipboard, that I hit Control-V and just save it right there and make sure I don't get rid of that. Success! WordPress has been installed. So I'll click Login. Use my username and password. Click Login. Great. I have a new fresh WordPress installation on my local computer, and if we take just real quick, it's neat to open it up, open the site up in a new tab, and look at the front end of a fresh installation. An independent WordPress installation, not on the internet, just on my local machine. Congratulations! In this video, you installed MAMP on your local computer, set up a database, edited the wp-config.php file, and installed WordPress. Now you can play around with creating WordPress websites without any need for an internet connection, totally in private, as much as you want. Next, We'll explore the inner workings of your new local WordPress installation to get to know how everything works together. See you there!